want to introduce you to an undergraduate. Blake, what do you film?
Yeah, filmmaking practices.
So Blake's an undergraduate filmmaker. I've asked him to record me. He'll shut it off when we get to questions and discussions so that you can still speak freely. Then Blake's going to take this and use his film editing talents to splice in the slides, and then we're going to iterate on how to better present science over some of these social media apps like YouTube. How are we going to do it so that people can get it? So we're using this as an opportunity for Blake to pursue his independent study, and for me to learn a little bit better how to speak to social media instead of to audiences like this. I'm Tom Seeger, and I'm just going to keep going. You're going to hit whatever buttons you need to hit.
I've already hit it.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. I'm Tom Seeger, and I'm going to present to you work that came from Camilla Norgård, I'm still working on my Danish, Jensen's dissertation. She's now completed her doctorate and founded a company called Interplay, which is going to be important a little bit later on. The theme of this presentation is the Industrial Revolution and what happens after. We are living in the legacy, sort of the residue of the Industrial Revolution, and we're talking about that in Raja's presentation on the circular economy, what to do with the leftovers. The Industrial Revolution might conjure up a lot of images of the steam engine and, I don't know, paddle wheels and factories and things like that. But as an engineer, because I'm an engineer, I trace the source of the Industrial Revolution back to this time and efficiency movement that was founded by Frederick Winslow Taylor and by Frank Gilbreth, Elizabeth Gilbreth, and some of the other people who would do the time and motion studies in the factories that would try and make them more efficient. It was certainly Ford was informed by these time and motion studies. They didn't invent the assembly line, but they give us a symbolic look at what made us rich. It was two things: specialization of labor, which the assembly line facilitates, and economies of scale. And the irony is, this is a book that my parents used to read to me, cheaper by the dozen when I was a kid. It was made into two terrible movies. The worst one starring Steve Martin. And it's written by the Gilbreths, Frank Gilbreth Jr., Frank Gilbreth's son. Now, Frank Gilbreth was an industrial engineer who would get a stopwatch out, do these time and motion studies, make everything more efficient. And the title captures the economies of scale, because one of Gilbreth's models was, it's cheaper if you have 12 kids. And it sort of exemplifies this specialization of labor. Once we give people one job to do, you are no longer a furniture maker, you are a knob turner. You're no longer a bicycle mechanic, you are a spoke installer. Then people become more efficient. This is how the Industrial Revolution made us rich. The premise for this is to measure everything. And we're still caught up in this culture of measurement. Everything must be measurable to be managed, goes the saying. It was Taylor who wrote this book called The Principles of Scientific Management. And he called it scientific because it was measurable. His number one innovation was to move people off of an hourly wage and onto what's called piecework, where you get paid for what you complete. And he thought that this would motivate people to do more, as it did. Everywhere that they put in the piecework pay system, productivity went up. But now there's a question, because there's no cultural norms for how much is each piece worth, and each piece is unique. So you don't know how much should you pay the people, how should you incentivize the workers. It has to be properly calibrated. So Gilbreth would get his stopwatch out, and he would measure the best workers, and he would see what they would do, and they'd try and improve their work, and he'd say, aha, this is how many pieces a worker should be able to produce in an hour. This is what we're going to pay him per piece. It all sounds very logical. He's essentially gamified the assembly line by allowing people to accumulate pieces, and the harder they work, the more they get paid. It's a compelling idea. But the artists, the critics, pushed back right away as dehumanizing. This is 1936. This is the worst part of the Depression, and this is Charlie Chaplin's movie, Modern Times. Charlie had gone over to London, met with Gandhi, and they had a disagreement about mechanization and technology and machines. Chaplin's view was, this is great. This is progress. This is going to lift people up out of the Depression. And Gandhi was like, no, machines are dehumanizing. What we really should be valuing is labor. Chaplin changed his thoughts. This was 5 years before Modern Times came out, and he made this movie in which the factory worker is literally enveloped by by the machine, becomes part of the machine, and of course the factory worker goes insane. So we're already seeing the critique of Winslow Taylor's piecework and efficiency, time and motion studies. Turns out there were congressional hearings. It was so controversial. The problem with this is that the harder you work the Industrial Revolution, the more stuck you get. We are no longer in a system in which economies of scale and specialization of labor are going to solve our problems. As we measure more, and as we specialize more, and as we incentivize more, we're just making the problems that the Industrial Revolution has given us worse. And the Industrial Revolution in many ways was great. We used to have starvation. We solved that by mechanizing agriculture. Now we have obesity. We used to have infectious disease, and we solved that by producing antibiotics. Now we have antibiotic, or we have superbacteria, and we have emergent disease. You can see how this goes. We used to have terrible, terrible wars, and we solved that by making nuclear bombs and threatening the entire world with annihilation of the human race. And now we have nuclear Armageddon as a prospect. Every single issue that the Industrial Revolution solved left us with a new problem. We used to have slaves, and we still have slaves. We used to have material scarcity. And in some places, we still have material scarcity. But in the industrialized countries, in the highly developed countries, we no longer have material scarcity. Fossil fuels and mechanization solve that. Instead, we have plastic in the oceans. We have carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We have the residue of the Industrial Revolution, and we can't deal with it by pulling on the Chinese finger trap harder. So what are we going to do, and why isn't it working? Remember, Taylor's innovation was piecework. It was this gamification. Daniel Pink wrote a book called Drive about what motivates people, and he's done this beautiful RSA anime video on YouTube. And he points out in this slide the usual economic thinking. If you reward something, you'll get more of that something. This is classic microeconomics. Any undergraduate can understand this. If you give your kids more money for losing their teeth, they start trying to knock their little baby teeth out and put them under the pillow. If you reward something, you get more of it, is the premise. But then Deming went to Japan, and he figured out in post-war Japan, that wasn't really the way it worked. He said, it's this really alluring idea. The sound of words captivates the imagination. Pay for what you get, and get for what you pay for to motivate people to do their best. But Deming says what actually happens is the opposite. And Pink found the same thing in his book, Drive. He says, if you want someone to shovel harder, if you want your kid to take out the trash, you can incentivize your kid in this way. For the mechanical, for the physical things that don't require a lot of creativity or cognitive labor, yes, this kind of incentive system works. And that was the incentive system that Charlie Chaplin was satirizing in his movie. You're on the assembly line, you have to twist harder and push further. Those incentives worked for Taylor, but we're no longer in that kind of economy. Now we need creativity. It was Deming that instituted the Quality Circle program that tried to enlist the worker's brain in creative energy and not just their brawn. This is the way that work looked in Winslow Taylor and Gilbert's time. But this is the way that work looks now. Work then, people collaborated in isolation. I turn my knobs and I pass it to you. And you install a slider and I pass it to the next person and the next person. But now, they're interdependent. Here, they're isolated from one another, and as long as each gear does its job, the entire machine works well. But here, they're creative and collaborative. They work, instead of individually and in sequence, they work in parallel and in collaboration. We need a new understanding of this post-industrial economy that is going to work for the digital age rather than the industrial age. The problems of sustainability are not simple. They're not linear in the way that Raj showed us. They are complex. And if you go back to the early 70s and read this seminal paper on dilemmas in a general theory of planning, it will help you understand this term called wicked problems. We no longer have what we can now refer to as tame problems, that is problems with solutions. We have these wicked problems, and it's taking this iconic fable, The Wizard of Oz, made during the Depression, along with contemporary of Charlie Chaplin's, and it's turning it on its head. What if we were to look at The Wizard of Oz from the perspective of the witch, rather than from the perspective of Dorothy? And this gave us the musical Wicked, which is the right metaphor for how we need to look at the Industrial Revolution now. So let's take a look at wicked problems. Wicked problems are difficult to formulate. They don't jump out at us. We need to put as much problem or as much effort into formulation as we put into the solution. And there is no single right answer. There's no back of the book where all the odd problems give you the right, and you can work backwards when you're trying to learn your fluid mechanics. For wicked problems, there are multiple, even infinite, right answers. And you might think you're done, but you're never done. Because wicked problems require resolution and resolution and resolution. They're all unique, and you're going to face competing value systems when you're confronting wicked problems. There will not be consensus on either the problem or its resolution. So this is Drucker. Drucker says our new age, we're no longer constrained by the kinds of things that the industrial age was constrained by. The productivity of the industrial worker is still a concern, but it's not our primary concern. Our future will be dictated by the productivity of the knowledge worker. Drucker is seeing this transition from a factory-based economy to a knowledge-based economy. And no other company comes to mind more than Pixar. If you are running a knowledge-based economy, you're going to sell stories. Pixar is certainly a technology company, but it is a storytelling company. Catmull wrote this book, Creativity, Inc., to try and tell the story of Pixar and the way story is central to what they do and how the creativity of the company is the value of the company. There is now an understanding that all companies are knowledge-based companies. There is no source of value that comes from monopoly because the barriers to entry are so low. There is no source of value that comes exclusively from economies of scale because, again, competition, the economies of scale have been wrung out and competition is so tight on a global scale. It is innovation. It is knowledge that is the source of all business value. And I've used Catmull as this isolation of knowledge, the creativity of the organization to sort of exaggerate the point. So we have Drucker saying it's the productivity of the knowledge worker. We have Deming saying knowledge workers don't work the way you think they work. And we have Taylor. It turns out that Taylor got this whole idea of his one best efficiency optimization way, according to the biographies of Taylor, when he was a kid. He was skipping down the sidewalk in eastern Pennsylvania where he lived, and he would count his skips, and he would try and optimize the distance of each jump to see if he could get to where he wanted to go with less energy and less time. It was Taylor who built a career out of the game that he used to play on the sidewalk as a kid. And it's beginning to remind me of Catmull and creativity and Pixar and the idea that ideas are the source of value. So what's our model now? The old model used to be Rockefeller's model. Create a monopoly, establish economies of scale, specialize labor, become the richest man in the world. That's not the model that works now. We know that Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world, and I've never checked in with Jeff about whether he's driven by shareholders. He's certainly driven by customers, because that's right at the core of their mission statement. But Jobs built the most valuable company in the world, never held a focus group in his life. These companies are leading consumers and shareholders rather than being pushed by them. And how do they do it? They start with the idea. This is the creativity that Catmull's written his book about. They must reduce the idea to practice, and they must bring that idea out to scale. We're going to talk about Starbucks. Forgetting the name of the founder of Starbucks who went to Italy, and he said, "What a great thing these coffee houses are. I want to have that experience, and I want to have it back home." And so, piped in Italian marble and opera music and things like that. We were like, the coffee's really good, but what is it with all this opera? Couldn't you play something, that I like? He's like, oh, okay, opera isn't what people are looking for. McDonald's went the exact same way. Once you've reduced the good ideas to practice, you found the ideas that count, the ideas that are valuable to your customers, that's when you go to scale. That's when you exploit the idea by replicating, not duplicating it, but finding out the arrow, finding out the essential features of the idea, whether it's the quarter pounder or it's the French fries. You've got the tacit idea that exists only in your imagination. And if you saw Michael Keaton starring in the movie about McDonald's, I forget what it was, he was playing Ray Kroc, then you go to the tennis court and you chalk out the lines and you reduce that idea to practice, which was the assembly line for fast food. When you've got it right on the tennis court, then you build the store. And you build another one, and you build another one, and you build it, which was Ray Kroc's idea. Knowledge. We've said that the 21st century is going to depend upon the productivity of the knowledge worker. Knowledge doesn't come in one flavor. It begins here, highly tacit. This is the knowledge of the experience, the knowledge you can't touch or feel. And it moves over to highly explicit. This is the knowledge embodied in blueprints and software code and materials. Along the way, it goes through lots of transformations. So we're going to start with experiences and ideas. We reduce them to language, more symbolic language, mathematics, formulas, software code, drawings, specifications, prototypes, and then finally, products. It's these knowledge transformations that every organization has to get really good at it to provide value. Starbucks isn't about, I mean, it's nice to have a logo and, you know, sort of the reference to Herman Melville and Moby Dick is sort of curious, but it is the way Starbucks does things. The Starbucks logo means things to people. Even though it's tacit, they associate the logo with a taste, an experience, an expectation. It's moving from the tacit to the explicit that creates value. How do we do that? Well, Nonaka in the 90s wrote a great book on the knowledge creating company, and he created these 4 knowledge conversion processes. It's a little bit of an oversimplification, but thank goodness. This is not Nonaka's knowledge spiral. What Camilla and I have done is peel the knowledge spiral apart because Nonaka didn't care about exploitation and entrepreneurship. For him, the endpoint was a better idea. But for us, the endpoint is a new customer or a sale. So we peeled apart the knowledge spiral, we turn it into the wheel of knowledge. We start by sharing the ideas, which is what this group is doing now. We make the ideas explicit in the form of drawing specifications, prototypes. Other people have to interact with those to have the experience of them. They're taking the explicit prototype and they're making it tacit again and experiential. And we run this back and forth like they did on the tennis court in the McDonald's movie until we get it right. And then we crank up the assembly line. We do it over and over and over again. So how does this fit with Daniel Pink? Well, when a task is complex, complicated, creative, we're over here in the tacit area where people's feel for it counts. The heuristics that they apply, sort of this unstated expertise is what's going on. But when we get over on the right, when we turn it into an algorithm, go with the carrots and the sticks. There is no one best way to manage the knowledge worker. There are different ways to manage different types of knowledge. Here's our spider web full of chaos. When we're thinking about knowledge, and this relates to universities and it relates to companies too, the old way that we used to think about, the metaphor that we used to use is the tree of knowledge. We had one branch, and that was for marketing. And we had another branch, and that was for research. And we had another branch, and that was for operations. And all of these different specialties, it looks, you turn the tree upside down, you get the typical corporate org chart. It is branched out and specialized. And people have difficulty communicating from branch to branch. They typically have to go back to a common trunk and then back out again, and it's slow. But it's efficient. It takes the transaction costs out of the organization. It makes everything cheaper. A PhD student is now like a leaf extended out on the end of a little twig, a specialist in something almost so inconsequential that you can barely see the rest of the tree. This is no longer the way that knowledge is organized. Because of the World Wide Web, because of the internet, because the marginal cost of data is approaching zero, knowledge is now organized in a web. The spider web of chaos, as you put it, is the new way to organize knowledge. We no longer have a law library, an engineering library, an English library. We just all go to scholar.google.com and we look for the journal articles. I mean, these are the faculty experience. It's the same thing for people who want to learn something. They use the web to learn. They no longer use, when I was a kid, I was taught the Dewey Decimal System as a third grader. And it doesn't make any sense anymore. Now we have autocomplete on Google. The future will have more spiders, fewer leaves. So how are we going to handle this spider web of chaos? What are the processes that we're going to use? I've alluded to some of them. On the left end, when we're doing the creativity, we need activities that will accelerate trust building, will accelerate creativity. I idea generation and idea testing. What are those? The metaphors. Circular economy is a metaphor. Ellen MacArthur sailed around the world. She needed everything for her voyage to be on her boat when she started, and she didn't throw anything overboard. When she got back to England, she was like, I have circumnavigated without a single sort of plastic bottle being thrown overboard. She said, if I can do it on my boat, why can't we use my voyage as a metaphor for the entire world? Boom! A foundation and an idea is launched, a movement is catalyzed. We've used in our classes improv theater to try and generate more ideas. Now, not necessarily good ones. They don't have to be good here. They have to get good here. When we turn them into prototypes, models, and a new phrase that we've coined, you might not feel like your product is perfect, but if you're not embarrassed by the first version, you're probably not doing it right. This idea of a proto-product says it's for sale, but we are not done. Version 2, version 2.1, version 2.2 is on its way. We're constantly updating and revising in accordance with the feedback that we get from people who are experiencing it. How do they get that experience? Well, one way is to use it. We role play, we simulate, we certainly do focus group. The more realistic that experience is, the better the feedback is going to be. And when we get it right, we replicate, 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 replicate. This is what's happening after the Industrial Revolution. There's a knowledge-based economy, and these are the kinds of knowledge processes that we have to get better at. Camilla's thesis is that at each stage, we will find play. Play has been stripped out of our corporate cultures in some respect, and then in others, the ping pong tables and the volleyball courts in Silicon Valley, celebrated but only as frivolous. The key to these knowledge operations are serious play. Play on the stage, in role play, for example. Gamification in the incentive structures for piecework. The prototyping and the simulation that goes on with testing the idea of a new product. Ford thought we should work when we're at work, and we should play when we're not. Ford believed in this separation of work and life, and we still hear it in our language now, work-life balance. I say the hell with work-life balance. I mean, I know I'm a faculty member and I love my job and everything, but it's really just all one big life. We should be playing while we're at work, and we should be working while we're at play. I'm going to have Blake hit the stop button so you can all respond freely.